So now we've got part 2. Okay. Now, so let's find 4.2 in the property interest report and see what the instructions are from them. Okay, so 4.1, the heading is the Development Act of 1993. Okay, Development Act of 1993. Now, the first thing they say is what?
Contact the local government authority.
Contact the local government authority, which essentially means contact the council. But before we do that, okay, we need to also check their other responses. Now, they've said as far as 4.1 is concerned, they say the Heritage Branch in Juna has what?
No record.
No record. And then it says, for details of this item, contact local government authority. Also, contact local government authority. Also, contact local government. And then we've got, lastly, Department of Planning has what?
No record.
No record. So, looking at all their responses there, they're saying, we've got no record, but for X, Y, and Z, you need to contact the local government authority. So, guess what? Property interest search, put that one down now. And now let's go to the second search, which is the council search.
So, Bill, when they say local government authorities, are they regarding the council that affects this property?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's the second search that you should have in front of you now, is the local government authority. Now, different councils are better than others. And what I mean by that is, some councils will have exactly the same numbers on the side, and makes it easier for us. We can just look for 4.1 on the council search, say, oh, presto, there it is. Okay, but unfortunately, so many of the councils don't do that. Why make life easy?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, why make life easy? But what we do know, okay, is that when you look at the Form 1, the headings will always be the same. So when, on the council search, if they're not numbered, the heading 4.1 is Part 3 Development Plan.
Okay.
All right, so we have to look in these searches for Part 3 Development Plan. Now, can we find that?
Development plan under the Development Act 1993.
Good. All right, good.
What page is this? That's on the council search?
On the council search.
Yeah, that's lots of pages.
Yeah, it looks like it's 1, 2, page 4, I think.
So page
They're not numbered, but it's the 4th page
they
in.
are actually up in the top corner.
The top corner, are they? Oh, fantastic. Yep, 4 there.
Okay.
All right. Now, you'll see there. So, is this item applicable? And the answer will be
No.
well, the answer is going to be yes. So we're going to tick it.
Up there,
No.
just above.
That's a different one. That's a different heading. So we have to look at Development Plan, Part 3. All right. And the first question we've got is we've got there. All right. We've got after we've got our entries, we've got title or other brief description of the zone, and we've got residential. And then you've got the same questions listed there, which are on the Form 1. Is the land situated in a designated state heritage area? Their answer is
No.
So we just transfer that information onto the Form 1. The next question, is the land designated as a place of local heritage value? No, and you'll see that's the same question there. Okay, so we're just transferring that information then across.
So the wording will be exactly the same, but we just got to find it in the searches.
With those questions, you'll see the same, yes, on that one.
The same that
Yeah.
replicates in Form 1.
But that's right, with these questions. But we know there, because we've gotten the residential there, okay, we know we've got to fill out 4.1. So 4.1, that little box, what do we do with that?
Yes.
So we're going to tick it.
Yep.
All right. And going down a little bit, you'll see, I'm just going back to the Form 1 now, and you'll see, will this be discharged or satisfied prior to its settlement? Well, we know what's being disclosed is the zone, isn't it?
Yep.
So lower on down the Form 1, we're going to disclose the zone. So the second question which we need to fill out, will this be discharged or satisfied prior to its settlement? So, the council search is telling us that the zone for this property is in residential. If I buy that land, is that going to change?
No.
No. So the answer, will this be discharged at settlement, is
Not applicable.
no. Remember, it's yes or no.
All right.
All right, so it's no. Are there attachments? And we could say yes, and we could actually photocopy this page from the council search and attach it as an annexure. That's what I would do. All right. Many people don't, but that's what I would do, and I'll come back to that. Now, looking at the question, all right, on the Form 1, which is title or other brief description of zone or policy area in which the land is situated, as shown in development plan. Now, you've already told me the answer. Next to those 2 semicolons, what are you going to write?
Residential.
Residential.
So where are we now?
Still we're on the Form 1.
You're on the Form 1?
So you've got 4.1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're referring to both the search, this time it's the council search, and the Form 1 at 4.1. And you'll see the questions are actually set out on the council search as well, which match the same questions on the Form 1, but on the council search it's giving you the answers.
So
Okay.
you know if it's applicable if it's actually in a search. Is that how you identify?
That's right. If there's something there, then we know we've got to respond to it.
If it's mentioned in a search, at the council search, then you say yes, it is.
That's right. But if the council search says nil,
Yeah.
then you know it's not applicable.
Oh,
But-
so in this instance, for example, if it wasn't applicable, it wouldn't list the zone.
Wouldn't list it. Wouldn't be there.
It wouldn't be there. Okay, just
Or
understand
it would say nil in relation to that response. Now,
yeah.
here's something I want to get into your head here. Okay, we always fill out 4.1 because we always want to. You'll find it's always there. We always fill out 4.1. Now, on the 4.1 question on your Form 1, there you'll see title or other brief description of the zone. Now, technically, do you see that question
No, history.
on your Form 1?
There.
All right.
Yeah.
Now,
Column 2.
in column 2, you'll see title or other brief description of the zone or policy area. Okay. Now, technically, you would be quite within your rights to write down there the certificate of title number.
Oh, okay.
But do you think I want you to write the certificate of title number there? No. Okay. The purchaser already knows what the CT number is. Okay. I don't want to tell them that again. We've already told them that earlier in the form. We always put the zone there.
Okay.
Okay. Now the question now you're going to ask me is what?
What do you mean?
Why? Thank you. Why? Why do you want to put the zone there? I want you to put the zone there because I want the purchaser to be on notice. This is a residential zone. We're telling you it's residential.
Oh, so you write residential there.
Well, whatever the council search tells us it is.
Could be.
Which it could be anything, but in this case it's residential. Okay? But I want you to understand the reasoning now. Okay? We're filling this form out exactly as the searches say. But the reason why I'm saying to you, I want to see the zone there, not the certificate of title, which technically you could write, okay, is because I don't want the purchaser coming back to you afterwards and saying, oh, I wanted to have a delicatessen in this place. I wanted to set up a delicatessen on the property and sell it. And the council are now telling me I can't do it. Yeah. All right? And by us putting the zone there, you can quite simply say, well,
You can't because it's zone residential.
you were clearly put on notice it was residential.
Yeah.
Whether you were foolish enough to carry on and not make your own inquiries, that's up to you. But I've done my bit because I filled out the Form 1 and I've disclosed it's residential. If you weren't happy with it, Mr. Smith, what should you have done?
Not buy it.
Not buy it. You could have called off. Do you see what I'm coming from here?
So, Bill, just another example, could they have put their, not residential, commercial or something like that?
It could be anything.
Yeah.
Right? But in this particular search,
Yes.
the search tells us that the zone is
Residential.
residential. So that's all we have to write. and we fill out the details as and when we go through them.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, so what I'm trying to get you to understand now is each entry, okay, the first port of call is you look at your property interest report. You look at what you find the same number, okay, you find the same number, and you then check to see what instructions the property interest report says to you, okay. If it says, we have no record, and it doesn't refer you anywhere else, then what do you write for that entry?
Nil.
No? The Form 1 tells us. So let's go back to the table of particulars on the Form 1. Before we get to the columns on your Form 1, remember this page. So before I call them the column start. So just before here, you've got.
Ours is different.
Here, it's halfway down the page on your copy. Where you've got column 1, column 2 and column 3, it's got the instructions. Okay? So, the instructions there essentially state, if an item is applicable, ensure the box is ticked and complete, so you can complete items 2 and 3 according to the searches. If an item is not applicable, and you've got 3 options here. Ensure that the box for the item is empty, don't like that one, I'll explain in a moment, or else strike out the item. So what you could do, you could actually go strike it out, something like that, or write NA or not applicable in column 1. And column 1 is there. So on 1.3 we put NA in column 1. Okay? Now, it gives us 3 options. You can leave it blank. Alright? You can leave it not applicable. You can actually strike it out. Now, the reason I don't like it as being blank, okay, is because of this reason. Okay, do I have a volunteer? Hi. Michael. Michael is filling out the Form 1. Just as we're doing now, he's at work. He's filling the Form 1 out. He's got the 3 searches in front of him. He's got the Form 1, he's checking them. And he's filling it out. Now, he's just about to fill out 1.3. And guess what happens?
Get distracted.
This is what happens. Thank you. Michael, have you got that file for Mr. Jones?
Not yet, sir.
Well, you should have had it done yesterday, and it's really important because he's very angry on the phone and we need to sort him out. You need to ring him and you need to sort that out quickly.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Meanwhile, as soon as I leave him with this issue, Nachi? Yeah. Nachi starts talking about him. Michael, I heard you had a hot date last night. How did that go?
Oh, bloody brilliant, mate.
Bloody brilliant. Thank you. Before he gets to start again, his colleague, Wissam, comes over and says, Michael, can you give me some hand on this file? I don't exactly know what I'm doing here. I know you had some dealings with it. What should I do here? Michael helps him. You may have 2 or 3 issues coming on. Now, Michael comes back to fill out the Form 1. Now, his approach is to leave them blank. The problem is, he's left 1.3 blank, and he thinks he's done it. I think I've done it. And so he misses 1.3 and he goes on to 1.4. Because he thinks he's done 1.3 and he's using the system where he just leaves it blank. He's got no written record on here that he's checked it and marked it off. Now, later on, the Form 1 is served. I'm the purchaser, and guess what? I only bought this land because I wanted to be able to subdivide it. And Michael has put it 1.3 under restrictive covenants. Not applicable. Happy days. However, I've bought the land and I've gone to settlement. And what do I discover? There's an encumbrance on the land which says I cannot subdivide it. I wouldn't have bought this bloody block of land if I couldn't have subdivided. I'm not happy with you, buddy. This has cost me a lot of money. I don't want it at all. What do you think I'm going to do?
Sue.
I'm going to sue. Do I want this bloody block of land? Nachi? No, I don't. I want the court to order it back. Now, obviously, That's worst case scenario. I don't want to scare the bejesus out of you. That's worst case scenario. 1.3 is always a difficult one you've got to be careful with. Always check that one. Okay? But the point being is that I don't want to scare you, all right? But
Not much.
no. But it is significant. And the key thing is you don't want this to happen, all right? Because not only is it a financial thing, but for poor Michael here, if he's made this sort of mistake, it's going to affect him emotionally, his confidence is going to go, and it's going to be too much of a headache. You see what we're getting at? So that's why I don't like the approach being taken that you just leave the boxes. You put not applicable or you strike it out. You choose whichever. What I also don't want you to see, I don't want you to see not applicable 1 minute, next minute you're crossing it out. Next minute it's not applicable, all right? Next minute it's crossing out.
Be consistent.
Be consistent. And the other thing I don't want to see, if you use the not applicable, when you're doing your columns on your Form 1, this is something else I don't want to see. You've got NAs all over the place. Remember, they have to be in column 1. Okay? I don't want to see NAs in column 2 or column 3. Okay? If you have them all over the place, it looks like you're drunk.
So where would you put it? Just under here like this?
So this is your 3 columns. That's 1.
That's right. You can put it there. You can put it in the middle. I don't mind. Because as long as you've got it clear, sometimes you haven't got space, but you've got it in the right column.
Would you also put a cross here instead of tick, or
No,
you just leave it blank? No
you leave
crosses.
it. Yeah.
So that's 1, 2, 3
3.
columns.
That's right. So what would be nice is when you look at the table of particulars, which gives us the instructions, all right, and you'll see it says column 1, column 2, and column 3. It would actually be nice if on the next page where the Form 1, what I call them the columns start, it'd be nice if they actually put those at the top.
Yeah, it would.
At the moment,
it took me ages to work out
what I'm.
column 1, 2, and 3
Yes,
meant.
exactly. So, distant students, from an imaginary point of view, you'll see, for example, above 1.1 mortgage of land, if you imagine on the left-hand side there's column 1, in the middle is column 2, and on the right is column 3.
With your tick boxes.
Just above your little tick box. Now,
So is that preferable to put not applicable rather than do strike out, even with the computer you can strike out text, rather than striking it out, you prefer not applicable?
I personally prefer not applicable.
Okay.
But you're quite at liberty to strike out, but exactly what you said earlier, you be consistent.
Everything.
You be consistent. So whichever method you
computer
choose.
too, Bill, you know how they do the strike out, because this is a Word document. You can actually do it strike out with a computer or
Well,
with
okay.
hand.
Now, all right. You okay.
Sorry.
No. You can actually. Okay. I don't want to confuse you just for the moment, but I want to. No. It's where it gets tricky. What you will find in the Form 1, okay, is when you actually go through. You have to go through every section.
Yes.
Okay. So 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4. Okay. Now, you're going through the whole document and you're checking each entry. Now, one student of mine many years ago, he had a very novel way of doing it, which was actually, it just made sense to me, right? Actually, after I laughed, because he was using a ruler. And he said, I'm just doing it like I would have done at school. And he used a little ruler to go down the form as he was ticking it off and looking at the searches, and he was using his ruler to do it. Now, what you will find when you do complete the Form 1, okay, is that the columns, which I call them the columns, which is the first part, most of the time, it's going to be not applicable. You may have 4 or 5 entries, probably tops, where you're actually going to have to put an entry in.
Oh, so it looks all messy.
All right? So what many people will actually do is they will actually, if you've got a page later in the document, okay, for example, so let's just say, I don't know, page with 2.1, 2.2 on, you know, if they're both not applicable, what parties do is they actually will pull the page out.
Like delete it, you mean?
Yeah, they won't include it.
So you still don't have to say not applicable, it's just delete it because
You don't include it at all. But there are some sections that have to be included. I'll come back to the moment.
Yeah, okay.
But if the pages are actually pulled out, then what has to be done is the Form 1 then has to be renumbered.
Renumbered.
So it's page 1 of 10, page 2 of 10, page 3 of 10, page 4 of 10. Okay?
So how does that go when you usually do one of these? They get you to, as a buyer, purchaser, to initial the bottom of every page.
Well, that's not necessarily for Form 1. It's for the contracts which need to be initialed.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Now, however, okay, there are some numbers which cannot, okay, be deleted. If we go back to the table of particulars, you'll see. Okay. So we're going back to the table of particulars where it says column 1, columns 2 and columns 3. And just after where it talks about writing not applicable, it says, alternatively, the item and any inapplicable heading may be omitted, but not in the case of the heading 1, general, and items 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 and 1.4. So they have to be in the Form 1. So they may be not applicable, but they have to be put in, and you just have them as not applicable. So up to 1.4, that has to be in, and 4.1, heading 4 and 4.1 and 4.2 has to be in, and so does items 5.1. So in every Form 1, those items must be included. So in practical terms, it's probably simply easier to say, right, keep all the pages up to 5.1, even though some of them can be deleted, and any other ones later do not have to be included in your Form 1, but we just renumber them. Now, looking at your columns, okay. So I call these the columns. All right. Now, if we go through the Form 1, we keep going until the columns end, and you'll see at 33.1 is the last entry as far as the columns are concerned. 33.1. Okay? That's the last one where we've got these columns where we're writing not applicable in column 1 and filling out 2 at columns 2 and 3 if something is relevant. Okay. Now, when we get to the schedule, okay, I'm just going to take you to your property interest report now. That's the primary search. Okay. And you'll see Division 2, other particulars. On your property interest report, you'll see we've got other particulars. So we're looking in your property interest report. So you'll find your last property interest report at 33.1, which matches the Form 1. And now you're getting at the other particulars. Okay. And you'll see those headings then correspond with the same headings in the schedule. Okay? You with me? Mm-hmm. So we look at the property interest report and see what they say. All right? And so we'd be filling out the schedules based usually on the information from the other particulars and also information from the vendor. Now, I didn't want to give you this earlier because I thought you've got enough searches on your table and it might just confuse you. But in practical life, okay, one of the first things with your new clients is you'd be getting them to fill out what we quite often is called a vendor questionnaire. Okay, it's a document which is basically asking the vendor to answer questions in relation to the land. This is just on Learn, there's a sample example. Different firms may have their own versions, but it is just useful.
So where are you making reference to this in the property interest report, did you say? Information there. Was this to do with the questionnaire?
33.1, but it says refer to the title or comments of any
finish the columns,
Yes.
you'll see the columns finish at 33.1.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And then you've got other particulars.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
And then the other particulars, the headings,
Yeah.
will usually relate to the subsequent headings in the schedule. Okay? And so when we're trying to fill out the schedules, you look at what the other particulars examples are saying, and quite often they'll also mention the vendor. So in real life, you would have the vendor complete early on a type of questionnaire to assist you in relation to those matters. Okay? For our purposes in our exercises, you just go by the instructions that you've been given in the exercise, and you normally assume that the vendor said there's nothing. Okay? But in real life, you'd be checking that. And if you weren't sure, say there was some ambiguity in what they'd filled out the questionnaire, and you didn't know the answer to one, you just pick up the phone and say, Mr. Jones, I've got this question here. What's the answer to this? Is there something? And you get them to just confirm that in writing, or you confirm it in email to them yourself. All right, later on.
Do you get this from the actual regulations as well?
No. This is just an example in practice that you might give to your client.
Oh, you've done this, have you? This is your...
This is not mine personally, but it's an example.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. All right, so you'd give it to your client when he comes in to say, right, fill this out, and you'd get the information from them. Because remember, I've knocked it out now from when we talked about where do the searches come from to fill out the Form 1, and the first primary search is what?
The sale
list, which is called, what's the search called?
The
Property interest report. The second search comes from the council. The third could be the strata corporation, community corporation if relevant, and fourth or third is the vendor. Okay? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to compile the Form 1 from these searches. The problem is it's so daunting because initially, you're thinking, oh God, how do I fill out this Form 1? But once you get it, and we take this approach, first step, check what the property interest report tells us. If they say there's no record, and that's all they say, what do we write? Not applicable. And where do we write it? First column, thank you. If the property interest report says we have no record, check with the council, what do we then do? You check the council search. Now, if they've got an entry there, what do we do with that entry? We transfer it to the Form 1. If the council says we have no record, then what do? Not applicable. And where do you write it? Column 1 on the Form 1. You're getting it now, aren't you? Okay. Guess what? Guess what you're going to do? Yeah. That's exactly what we're going to do.
Would you have a break first, though?
Oh, yes, we can have a break. Yeah, well, I can get you started on doing one. Yeah.
Could you please fill in your vendor's information, please?
Okay. Now, listen. It's open class now. If you want to go to the toilet, that's not a drama. Okay. Now, what I'm going to get you to do is, last week I gave you the exercise. Okay. The instructions for last week's exercise are equivalent to this one.
Have you got any forms from last week?
Oh, yes, I'll get you some. Okay. So what I want you to do is actually start filling out the Form 1. Okay, pursuant to those instructions and pursuant to this exercise.
Yep.
And we've already filled out a couple as part of on the board. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, importantly, anybody totally stuck that they're lost?
No.
Okay. Not this. Okay. Well, this is the point now. What I want you to do now is I want you to start filling out the Form 1. Yep. And actually, what I'm going to suggest you do is don't fill out the early pages with the name and the parties. You can do that at home. Okay? That's the easy bit. And that's saying who the vendor is, who the purchaser is. Start with the columns. Yep. Okay? And I want you to start doing it. Okay? And essentially practice now doing it. And then so what I'll do, when you've finished it, I'll give you an example specimen for you to do.
I recently had a bit of dealings with a property, and the
Last week,
real estate, the council searches and stuff. So is that normal that they do that sort of stuff, so we're doubling up on it, or?
The real estate,
Yeah, agent had the council, because I want to know whether the property, whether the house on the property had been approved by the council, whether septic's had been approved and all that.
it's very common for the real estate agents to actually do searches. Yeah.
Okay, so we do, when we fill this out, we do our own search.
Well, you normally do your own search. Yeah. Quite often, sometimes people try and, use the other people's searches. The problem is that what happens if those searches are old? It's always best to get, it's always best to get your own searches. Okay. So, distant students, what I want you to do now is I want you to do the exercise to continue to and fill out the Form 1, which is just what the students are doing in class. I will actually make the Form 1 specimen example available in a few days' time, but I want to make sure that you check, you actually do the exercise first and have a go at it. Again, I do not expect you to get 100% right. I'll be happy if you get 50% at this stage, all right, because it's about practice and getting used to the documents. Okay, so good night.